Uh-oh, here we go, bitch. Here we go, bitch. Left bottom, I said that with a list. Stephen King, Stephen King, Stephen King. It's not Jesus! Break it down, bitch. Let me see you back it up.
Hey, listen.
Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Shaq and today I'm going to be going through my top 10 books of 2021. I am so sorry this video is so delayed. I meant to upload this a long time ago. I just ran out of time. I ran out of time to post this, which is why I'm posting it in the first week of January. I hope that's okay. I've kind of seen other creators do it around the time of year right now in my sub boxes anyway, so I hope that's okay. And I hope that you're looking forward to seeing my top 10 of 2021 because I certainly am excited to tell you. I have a lot of top 10 videos from past years. I've been doing Booktube right now for 5 years, I think. So if you want to see 5 years worth of these videos, you know what to do. You know where to go. I'll leave the playlist down below. Oh God, I reorganized my bookshelves last night, so I have no idea where anything is. So if you've watched any of my favourite of the year videos before, you'll know I can't help myself but include an honourable mentions list where it's like a handful of books that could have made it on this list but didn't quite for whatever reason. I will link any relevant videos or Goodreads reviews down below to see a little bit more of my in-depth thoughts of these, but here are my honourable mentions. So the first on our honourable mentions list is Blackout. So this is an amalgamation of short stories from authors of colour that are quite popular in modern media at the moment. There are so many good authors in here such as Danielle Clayton, Tiffany D. Jackson, Nick Stone, as well as Angie Thomas, Ashley Woodfolk and Nicola Yoon. Some really good authors in here. I had such a blast reading this, which is why it's on my honourable mentions of this year. This is a short story collection from authors of colour surrounding Brooklyn and a blackout, and essentially it's about different black main characters or characters of colour navigating this blackout and kind of like how that has negative impacts or positive impacts on their daily life. I actually really loved this. I felt like all the stories were really cohesive. They actually had endings. It was such good writing. I loved writing from authors I haven't enjoyed in the past because of this book, and it was fucking fantastic. I ended up giving it a 3.75, so it just missed out on this list, but was still a great book nonetheless. Next on our honourable mentions before I get into my top 10 is This Is How You Lose a Time War. This is by Amal El Mothar and Max Gladstone. So essentially This Is How You Lose a Time War is basically told from the perspectives of each end of a time war. And it's a sapphic tale about these two lovers who communicate with each other through unconventional means across spaces and time. So they're like time travel and they'll try and like keep up with each other in these letters, and it is such a poetic and beautiful story. I did have my own grievances with the way that it was written in the language and how I was understanding things, but it was really good and I just could not help myself but to include it somewhere in this video. Next we have Felix Ever After, which is by Kaysen Calendar. I actually have a vlog of this on my channel right now, which you can go and watch if you would like to. This is essentially a coming of age YA novel about Felix, who is a gay black trans man, and he just thinks that he is one minority too many to find love. And he basically finds himself in a love triangle between his best friend and a guy that they're catfishing. It's a hot mess. And after someone is trying to dead name him and post photos of him before he transitioned, he needs to find the culprit, and so sets up this like fake thing. And that part of the story was kind of fabricated to me and kind of inhibited my enjoyment. When I go see the vlog of that, then you absolutely can, because it's kind of wild, it's chaotic, but it's great. We're almost getting to the end of the honourable mentions, I promise. I've been waffling for way too long already. Next is a reread which would have been on my top 10 of the year, but I didn't think it was fair to include a reread on this list just because I knew I was going to love it, which is why I reread it. I'm actually reading it in January as well. Oopsie. And that is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Everyone and their mother knows what it's about by now. I'm not going to give you a description. It's about Evelyn Hugo, who is a starlet, and we're following her journey and why she had 7 husbands and why she lived the way that she did. I absolutely adored this. It's in my honourable mentions again because it was a reread and I don't think it was very fair to all of the books I read for the first time this year. So I have just decided to pop it in the honourable mentions because that was the fairest way to do it. But I love this book again this year. It kind of like encompassed me. I read it via audiobook for this first time and I loved it. What can I say? I loved it. I'm going back for more. It's like a buffet. I'm going for seconds. Why did I sound Italian? This is me salt baying. Cheese. It's not cheese, it's salt. Anyway, the last book on my honourable mentions list is The Five by Hallie Rubenhold. Now, I read a shit ton of amazing books in December of 2021. Like, the end of December was a really good reading month for me. I read so many books that could have been a 4 or a 5 stars and could have easily all just slipped their way really gracefully onto this list. This is one of those that didn't quite make it to that, but it was fucking fantastic. The Five by Hallie Rubenhold basically depicts the 5 of the canon? Can you say canon? The proven deaths to be from Jack the Ripper. So each of these 5 women their lives are told from birth to death, and you're kind of like rooting for them, and it is told in a way that is kind of fictional, but also it's not fictional. You know that they're gonna die, you just don't know when, and it just makes it all the more devastating. I love this book for multiple reasons, mostly because it debunked a lot of the media rumours about these women and kind of like really held media accountable, which I love because I'm a media student and I fucking love that shit. I just ate this up and it deserves to be on this list, but just missed out. Just missed out. Now we're actually getting to the nitty gritty. Here is my definitive ranked top 10 books of 2021. My first favourite of 2021 at the number 10 spot is When Dimple Met Rishi by Sandhya Menon. Now this is about two Indian teenagers who are set up for an arranged marriage. One of them is called Rishi, obviously, one of them is called Dimple, and they couldn't be more different. But the more that they get to know each other while they're on like a coding summer camp, I guess, the two of them bond over their heritage, over their values, over their emotions, and become really close. I absolutely love this. It was fantastic. I think this is a little bit of one of those books that had hype in its time, but I didn't really get the chance to read it because I was just not into Booktube at that time. But I have read this now and I thoroughly enjoyed myself. It's very light, very fluffy. It surprised me how much it made me laugh. I think this also was very realistic in the fact that this is how teenagers actually think and feel. I found it to be very realistic because I wasn't a teenager that long ago. It was like 4 years ago. So the fact that this encapsulates what it is actually like to be a young adult and it's in YA makes me feel so happy. Well done, Sandhya Menon. I really would like to read a sequel of this, but I've heard it's not very good. But we have to try anyway because I really like the story and I'd love to read more. Number 9 on my top 10 list is Normal People by Sally Rooney. Now I feel like this book is like Marmite. You either love it or you fucking hate it. This is basically about Connell and Marianne. They are Irish teenagers in an Irish school and they kind of have like this friends with benefit situation going on in school where Connell is kind of ashamed that he's having sex with Marianne. And then they grow up and this kind of dynamic switches, it keeps changing, and it just is like a very intelligent but also jarring character analysis on both Marianne and Connell. I loved this, but I also hated it, and it's only on this list not because it's the best book I've ever read, not because I like the characters that much. It is because I could not stop thinking about this fucking book. It was always in my head. Always in my head. I was dreaming about Connell. I was thinking about Marianne. I was like, why did they have to happen like this? I still haven't actually watched a show of this, and I probably should because I think I'd really enjoy it. But I love this book. I read it at a time where I really needed it. I cried so bad at the ending. It was just fantastic, and that's why it's number 9 on this list. Throughout 2021, I set myself the task to read more non-fiction, which is why it makes sense that there are a couple of non-fiction books on this list. The first of which peaks at number 8, and that is The Fuck It Diet by Caroline Dooner. So if you didn't know, The Fuck It Diet is basically a kind of like a self-help book, but also not. It's a complete rejection of diet culture and how to just eat intuitively whenever you're hungry. It's about trusting yourself, your body, and taking care of your needs and just saying, fuck it. Fuck it, I'm gonna be healthy, I'm gonna take care of myself because I deserve to live and I deserve to not fear food anymore. This helped me so much in my eating disorder recovery. If you are even just a little bit struggling with eating disorders, I would highly recommend reading this. I actually would kind of recommend reading this even if you don't suffer with any of those things, because understanding this really makes you see that diets are fucking stupid. I have a few little like nitpicks here and there in the book, but overall it changed my life and I loved it. It was fantastic. So this next book is so low down my bookshelves, I really can't be bothered to go down and get it. But the next book on this list is The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse. This was one of those books that I read during December that absolutely popped off. Like if a book could get play the game in Overwatch, this book would have play the game. Fucking 6 team kill Death Blossom, you know what I mean? Death Blossom, I said that with a list. That's a very niche joke as well. If you get that, comment down below a little skull emoji. You know, you probably don't, but maybe if you watch my Overwatch content on TikTok and Twitch when I return this summer. This year! You understand what I mean, besties? Come join the fun! Anyway, okay? Anyway, I love this book. I read it at a time again when I really needed it because I read it at like 4 AM, crying, bawling, screaming, and this book I think is meant for children. If you didn't know, this book is basically like a self-help book again, but the way it is told is so different and simple. I think it's aimed towards children, but the messages underneath are very much so rooted in adulthood. So although it's, I think, a children's book on the surface, adults and older audiences can still enjoy it and get value from it. I loved this. Very unexpected. The illustrations were brilliant. Everything about it was fantastic, and I cried like a bitch because I needed this, and it was just like a little warm hug. A little warm hug. The next book at number 6 should probably be higher than this, but this list is a little bit janky, I'm gonna be honest with you. The next book on this list is the first book in the Skullduggery series, Skullduggery Pleasant series, by Derek Landy. I, again, read this in December. Oh my god, December popped up for a reading month. It was fantastic. But this is Skullduggery Pleasant, which is basically about Stephanie, who inherits her uncle's writing, so his also his money, his property when he dies. And when he does die and she figures out, you know, she's got this house and she's a 12-year-old girl boss. Go on, Stephanie, pop off, sis. Go, girl, give us nothing. She realizes that everything that her uncle was writing about in his horror novels that he got really famous for is actually real and not fiction. I fucking loved this book. This is my partner's favorite series, and my god, is there a reason for it. Every time I bring this up to people who love books, they've already read it and they love it, and I knew for a fact that I would love it too, and that is exactly why it falls on this list. I thought the story was amazing. I really fancied Scudery Pleasant. I thought he was Danny Boney Av. I actually have a reading vlog of me simping over Scudery Pleasant for about 20 minutes, so if you want to go and see me do that in real time, baby, then obviously you can. I loved how scary this was, how atmospheric the audiobook was. It was absolutely well written, flowed really well, the chemistry between the characters was amazing. I just can't wait to read the rest of the series, and I think for the next, like, I don't know, 10 years, one of these books will probably be my top 10. I am gonna make that right now. That little detriment, one of these is gonna be my top 10 for like the end of time. I'm gonna say it. Until an asteroid hits the earth and just demolishes every single human on this planet, I will still be sat in the afterlife reading these books. Because they're so good. Okay, now we've hit the halfway mark, and we're coming to the 5th placement on my top 10 of 2021, and that is Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson. Now, I read this at the very beginning of the year, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it ever since, which is why it is placed so highly, or rather like in the middle of this list. This is basically about Enchanted, who is a aspiring singer, and in order to make it as a singer, she makes a deal with Corey Fields so that they can have a like managerial relationship to get Enchanted's name out there as an artist. But over the years, she kind of develops a really toxic relationship with Corey and ends up being one of the suspects of his murder case. I, again, love this. I don't usually like murder mystery books, and this isn't really like a murder mystery book in the sense that it's a plot. That is definitely more of like a side B plot, but I still loved it nonetheless. I thoroughly enjoyed this, devoured it. I think Tiffany D. Jackson's writing is absolutely incredible, and I can't wait to read more of her stuff. But in terms of Grown, I thought it was incredibly well written, it flowed so well, and the story of it is so impactful, it's really hard to forget. Which is why, girls, gays, non-binary pals, it's on this list. At number 4, we have yet another non-fiction read, and that is Attached, which is by Amir Levine and Rachel S. Heller. This I have spoken about on my channel a little bit too much. A lot more than I was expecting to anyway. My therapist, when I was still doing therapy, recommended this to me, and it changed my goddamn fucking life. As soon as I read this, I just noticed a whole shift in my mental health and my attitude towards the relationships between just me and everyone in general, but also in romance, in friendships, and also with my family as well. So essentially, Attached is a book in which kind of like delves into attachment theory, which is, if you didn't know, was birthed by Mary Ainsworth during the Strange situation, where she essentially tested children whether they had an anxious attachment style, an avoidant, or a secure one. So if you're anxious, you get kind of like flustered when you and your either partner, caregiver, anyone in your life that you have an attachment to are apart for too long. You start to spiral and get really anxious and cry and do things you wouldn't normally do because you're triggered. Avoidant is whenever you feel kind of like tension between your relationships, you kind of shut off and then isolate yourself, but you still feel that anxiously attached people do, you just don't show it as often. And then secure is you're not really fussed, you do feel maybe some sort of sadness when you're away from them, but you understand that it's probably not a you problem and you just get on with your own thing. So that's in essence what Attached is about, and up until recently I had a proper anxious attachment style, and I would tell you that working towards a secure one when you've been anxious in the past is fucking work. It's a full-time job. But I felt like shifting between an anxious and a secure attachment style was literally the saving grace of my recovery, because a lot of times we do things to ourselves in the anxious state because we're anxious because we have that kind of attachment style. And this, combined with reading the Fuck It diet, really helped me in my recovery because I learned to not give a fuck what other people think, but in a secure way. Would highly recommend reading this if you struggle with this kind of thing. Even if you struggle with being avoidant or even secure, read this, get educated and see where you stand, because I did, and it absolutely changed my life. Like, it was fucking amazing. Okay, we've got down to number 3 now. This is the 3rd highest book that I read last year. In 3rd place, drum roll please, boo! In 3rd place is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I had no idea that I would A, even read this year, and B, absolutely fucking love it. Rebecca, if you didn't know, is a classic by Daphne du Maurier. It is set in the south of France, following a nameless main character who marries into the home of Maxim de Winter, becoming his new wife, aka Mrs. de Winter. She thinks that married life is going to be so much fun and fabulous and luxurious. She's going to be rich, she's going to be so loved by Max. In reality, Max's ex-wife Rebecca is all over the house, like she's haunting it. And so our main character, our nameless main character, doesn't feel as though she can live up to Rebecca's legacy, as it is ruining her life. I fucking loved this. I have a vlog, I have a good review which go into in depth about how I felt about this book, but it was fucking amazing. I could not stop thinking about it. I could not stop dreaming about it. I loved it so much. I read this via audiobook originally, and the audiobook is so creepy. There's like different music, there's different voices. The audiobook narrator is fucking phenomenal. I had an amazing reading experience with this as well because I found it via Victoria Shaz, and it just kind of like birthed a whole new love for me for classic books. And I want to read so much more because if they're like this and I enjoy them as much as this one, I'm gonna enjoy a lot of them, bestie. I'm really excited. Yes, I love this book. Go check out my reading vlog or my Goodreads review to see a little bit more of my nuanced thoughts. But overall, I love this. It was fantastic. If you've been watching my content throughout 2021, then you'll probably know what's coming next. In second place is, drumroll please, Best Entry by Stephen King. Woo! Yes, I finally lost my Stephen King virginity this past year. Stephen King has a way of gripping you and writing unlike any other. And every time a white guy on Tumblr used to say this to me, I'd be like, shut up, you don't know what he's talking about. You're probably like Quentin Tarantino, don't you? They were right. In terms of Pet Sematary, they were right anyway. The main themes of Pet Sematary are death and grief, and we're following our main protagonist's family as they kind of like navigate a lot of people dying in their life over a small period of time. As more deaths occur in their lives, the more unhinged they become until the point they don't even recognize themselves anymore. I feel like this is an amazing book to depict grief and the unraveling that happens in your mental state, because you turn into a monster when you lose anyone, whether that's alive or if they're dead. And I feel like the representation of death in this book and the conversations that happen because of it are so nuanced and accurate, it's unreal. I think one of the biggest reasons why this is up here is because my auntie used to really like this book, and she unfortunately died of a heroin overdose a good few years ago, maybe even a decade ago, and she really loved this book. She used to talk about it all the time. One of my cousins was named after Gage in this book, and it made me miss her. It did make me miss her quite a lot because I know that she loved stuff like this, and it's really sad that she's now gone. But I hope that, you know, she's somewhere and she knows that I read this book and I love it and I loved her so much, and we forgive her for what she did. I'm not gonna get upset, but this book was amazing. It was brilliant. I can't put into words how much I loved it. I will definitely be reading this in the future because it was simply amazing. I devoured every word, every passage. I just want to read it again. Okay, right, I've been talking about Pet Sematary way too often on my channel this year, so how can anything possibly top it? How can anything possibly top it? Tell you what can, Talia Hibbert. She can top anything, any day, any time. First place, my favourite book of 2021 has to be Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert. A very different book to Pet Sematary, I must say. I absolutely loved Danny Brown this year. Even like Talia Hibbert has been holding me in a chokehold since like I read Chloe Brown. It was fucking amazing. If you haven't read these yet, then what are you doing? If you like sexy smut romance novels, what are you doing? In terms of story, we are following Danica Brown, who is so dead set on her career that she asks the universe for a friends of benefits just to mess around with. The universe hands her Zaf, who is an ex-rugby player, and they kind of had this like friends of benefits agreement where if they sleep together, then Danica has her friends of benefits that she asked for, and Zaf is kind of like getting good publicity. He has a little bit of reputation, and it's important for him to have this good rapport with the paparazzi and the public, so Danny agrees to give him that by faking a relationship with him. This was so good. Like, even the sex scenes felt good to read. It didn't feel like just porn. It felt good to read because the characters cared about each other. They had chemistry, and it was fucking gorgeous. There are so many themes in this book that I can't list them all. There are so many that are explored, such as masculinity, femininity, attachment style, so many different things. Don't get me wrong, this book had its flaws, but it really did feel like the universe was handing it to me, much like the first book in this trilogy. It felt like the universe was like, read this book right now. It deals with complications with the feelings of pleasure, with the feelings of mental health. The characters are so three-dimensional, it's fucking crazy. A lot of the time, Danny is working like twice as hard as her white counterparts, as she is a bisexual woman of colour, and that is really highlighted in this book. That representation is truly priceless. I loved this because it was utterly fictional, and although I don't think this kind of relationship would work in real life, I loved seeing that Zaf and Danny were just able to make anything work because they simply loved each other. They would do anything for each other to make it work because they value each other's company and their relationship, and it just taught me a little bit more about love and how it should be in my real life. So yes, I love this so much. I read it exactly the time I needed it. It was so nice, a little distraction from the world lately, and I loved it. Truly I did. If you haven't picked these up yet, definitely go ahead and do so because they are excellent and they have substance, not just all sex, it's substance as well, which is why I enjoy these so much, which is why Danny Brown is my most loved book of 2021. Well, there you have it. Those are my my top 10 reads of 2021. I really hope that you enjoyed this video and enjoy me really quickly rambling about all of the books I've loved this year. Well, not all of them. The top 10 and some honorable mentions, but I really hope that you've enjoyed this video anyway. Let me know down below maybe your top 3 or maybe just even your favorite book of the year. I really would like to know. And I hope to see you next week for just a regular video. I think I'm going to start publishing videos away from end of year content because now I've done my top 10 and I'm done now, I think. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed. I'll see you next time. But until then, enjoy any books that you pick up or anything productive that you managed to get done. Be nice to yourself, enjoy your reads, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.